of us are unfamiliar with Kwanzaa's origins and principles, which can make it challenging to fully understand its significance and relevance in today's society. You may have heard of it, but many don't really know what it's all about or even how to celebrate it.
We might think it's just another holiday, but it's so much more than that. So today, we're exploring the history and principles of Kwanzaa and how you can incorporate this beautiful celebration into your holidays. Welcome back to our channel. I'm Haas.
I'm Cece.
Today we got a hot topic for you. Habari Gani is the greeting used at the beginning of each day of Kwanzaa. It's a Swahili word for what's the news. So in the spirit of Kwanzaa, Habari Gani.
Habari Gani. So Kwanzaa was created in 1966 by Dr. Maulana Karenga, who was an African-American activist and educator. It was created to celebrate African-American culture and heritage and was designed to empower the Black community after the Watts Rebellion in 1965.
The Watts Rebellion was a large series of riots that broke out on August 11, 1965, in the predominantly Black neighborhood of Watts in Los Angeles. And it was after a traffic stop that went way left. The Watts Rebellion lasted for 6 days, resulting in 34 deaths, 1,032 injuries, and 4,000 arrests, involving 34,000 people and ending in the destruction of 1,000 buildings, totaling $40 million in damages.
Now, Dr. Karenga wanted to encourage pride in the Black culture and rebuild the neighborhoods affected by the riots. He wanted a non-Christian holiday that was specifically centered around African Americans and their ancestral heritage.
Dr. Karenga said his goal was to give Black people an alternative to the existing holiday of Christmas, and to give Black people an opportunity to celebrate themselves and their history, rather than simply imitating the practice of the dominant society.
For Dr. Karenga, the creation of such a holiday also underscored the essential premise that you must have a cultural revolution before the violent revolution. The cultural revolution gives identity, purpose, and direction.
I'm still a culture nationalist. I believe that culture defines and gives life and motion to human beings.
Okay.
And by culture, I mean the totality of thought and practice by which a people creates itself, celebrates, sustains, and develops itself, and introduces itself to history and humanity. The struggle we're waging for freedom, justice, for self-determination begins as a culture struggle, and it lays the basis for us returning to our own history, as Cabral said. You see, our struggle is to return to our history, because during the Holocaust of enslavement, we were lifted out of our own history, made a footnote and forgotten casualty in other people's history and culture. So our struggle has been to return to that. My life's work has been by my name, Karenga, which means keeper of the tradition. It's to recover, go back, Sankofa is the word we use now, Arkan, to go back, retrieve, and reconstruct the best of what it means to be African and human, and use that to not only understand ourselves in the world, but to assert ourselves in the world.
And according to Dr. Karenga, the name Kwanzaa derives from the Swahili phrase Mutanda ya Kwanza, meaning first fruits. It was decided to spell the holiday's name with an additional A so that it would have a symbolic 7 letters.
Right. The First Fruits festivals are celebrated in parts of Africa in December and January in alignment with the December solstice. The gathering of people and the value and practice of gathering of crops together is the foundational common aspect of all First Fruits celebrations. It's also a showing of profound reverence for the Creator and creation. So as people gather to harvest the crops, they also congregate as a human crop of the Creator.
Another inspiration for the holiday was the Zulu festival, Nguzo Saba, also celebrated during the December solstice. And during this festival, there's a ceremony that involves young Zulu warriors killing a bull with their bare hands. And the bull is then prepared with spices, cooked, and served to the young warriors. It's a period devoted to blessing the land and showing gratitude for the ancestors and their king.
Right. Likewise, Kwanzaa holiday is all about gratitude and giving homage to those who have passed before us. It lasts for 7 days, beginning on December 26th, ending on January 1st. Now, there are many ways to celebrate Kwanzaa, and there's always room to add your own personal style.
However, there are traditional guidelines that are important to observe. These guidelines will make your Kwanzaa engaging and meaningful, as well as become a means to facilitate traditions that will be passed down through the generations. Without definite guidelines and core values and practice, there's no holiday. So let's start with those guidelines.
Right.
The first thing you'll need is a kinara, or candle holder. This is symbolic of African American roots or their ancestors from Africa. The kinara holds the Nguzo Saba, or the 7 candles, which represents the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, or the Nguzo Saba.
The candle colors of Kwanzaa are black, red, and green. Black for the people, red for the struggle, and green for the future and hope that comes from their struggle. The black candle represents the first principle and is placed in the center of the kinara. There are 3 red candles that are placed to the left of the black candle, and the green candles are placed to the right of the black candle.
Then you add ears of corn, also called muhindi, which is symbolic of the children and their future that they embody. Next, you place the mazao, which are the crops.
Right.
And these can be any vegetables or fruits you enjoy. And these crops are symbolic of African harvest celebrations and the rewards of productive and collective labor.
Right. There also must be a kikombe cha umoja, which is the unity cup. It represents the act of coming together and sharing a drink to promote that togetherness.
All the items are placed on a straw woven mat called a mkeka and represents the foundational principle and practice of unity, which makes all else possible.
And lastly, there is zawadi, or the gifts. And these are symbolic of the labor and love of parents and the commitment made and kept by children. And these are usually some form of a handmade or creative type gift.
It's essential to find a central place in the home for the Kwanzaa setup. A table is usually spread with a beautiful piece of African cloth. Then the mkeka is placed down and all the other symbols are placed on it and around it, symbolizing our rootedness to our tradition.
Right. A candle is lit each day in homage to the Nguzo Saba, or the 7 principles, which is the matrix and minimum set of values which people are urged to live by in order to rescue and reconstruct their lives in their own image according to their own needs. And these values are the foundation of Kwanzaa.
The first principle is Umoja, or unity, which emphasizes the importance of coming together as a community. This is something we should strive to maintain. Unity in the family, in the community, in our race, and the nation.
Right. The second principle is Kujichagulia, or self-determination, which encourages us to define ourselves, create for ourselves, speak for ourselves, but more importantly, name ourselves.
The third principle is Ujima, or collective work and responsibility, which reminds us to build and maintain our community together and make our community's problems our problems and to solve them together. We're all in this together, so let's work together.
The fourth principle is Ujama, or cooperative economics, which promote economic empowerment and self-sufficiency. African Americans should own stores and shops and other businesses and profit from them together as a community.
The fifth principle is Nia, or purpose, which inspires us to find our passion and pursue our dreams. Thus, by focusing on building and development of our community, we can restore our people to their traditional greatness.
The sixth principle is Kuumba, or creativity, which celebrates our imagination, innovation, so we can leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited it.
The seventh principle is Imani, or faith, which gives us the confidence to believe in ourselves and our abilities, and to believe in our people with all our hearts, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle.
So, as we stated before, the black candle represents the first principle, Umoja, or unity, which is placed at the center of the Kinara. And the red candles represents the principles of Kujichagulia, Ujama, and Kuumba, and are placed to the left of the black candle. The green candles represent the principles of Ujima, Nia, and Imani, and are placed to the right of the black candle.
The black candle is lit first on the first day of the celebration, and the remaining candles are lit afterwards from the left to right on the following days. This procedure is to indicate that the people come first, then the struggle, and then the hope that comes from the struggle.
Now that we have taken you through the meanings and principles of Kwanzaa, we're going to take you through how we, Haas and I, celebrate Kwanzaa with our family. Now, as we said before, there are many ways to incorporate Kwanzaa into your family tradition and lifestyle.
So we chose to center our Kwanzaa daily celebration for the first 6 days around the first meal of the day, which was usually breakfast or brunch.
Right.
And we usually set up our Kwanzaa symbols at the center of our dinner table, but you can set your Kwanzaa symbols anywhere convenient to you in your home.
Right. And after we finish eating, we would go into the ceremony asking Habara Ghani, and each family member responds with the principle of the day. And then our eldest child would then light the first candle, starting with the black candle on the first day, which is Umoja.
And then the eldest family member would begin the discussion centered on the principle.
Right.
And this discussion would entail the understanding of the principle itself, how it affects us as both individuals and as members of our community or race, and also discuss how the principle affects the world at large and our role within the global community.
Right.
And lastly, we co-create a plan to incorporate the principle into our lives over the coming year.
Right. And the Kikombe Cha Umoja would have previously been filled with water before the ceremony began. And in our family, the patriarch would take the first drink, and then the matriarch would take the second drink, and then it's passed to our children. And then from there, the youngest child would then extinguish the candles. And like I said, this process can vary from family to family.
And then on the final day of Kwanzaa, we invite our extended family and friends to a Kwanzaa feast at our home called a Karamu.
Now, traditionally, the Karamu is held on the 6th day of Kwanzaa. However, we moved ours to the 7th day because it coincides with the North American New Year. And like we said, this is just what works best for our family.
A potted plant is placed near the Kwanzaa symbols. And on the start of the ceremony, of course, we'd ask the question, Habari Ghani, and the crowd responds in unison, Imani, which is the 7th principle of the celebration.
Right. And then the Kinara is lit, and as we light each candle on the Kinara, someone would, in the crowd, would usually shout out the
principle that it represents,
for
right?
that day, right?
And so we start with the center candle, which is Umoja. Then we go to the first red candle, which is Kujichagulia. Then we go to the first green candle, which is Ujima. Then the second red candle, which is Ujama. Then the second green candle, which is Nia. Then the third red candle, which is Kuumba, and then the third green candle, which is Imani.
Right.
And all of the candles will be lit at that point.
Right. So once the candles are lit, a very lively cross-generational conversation would begin that incorporated some of the same subjects that we'd usually discuss in the previous 3 days with our nuclear family. And it just would occur on a much larger scale. And some of these conversations get very lively, you know. But however, everyone would be encouraged to talk about how they had their plans for incorporating the principles into their everyday lives over the next coming year. And then we would then have a libation ceremony called a tambiko, which is a ceremony of remembrance of our ancestors. And once again, the Kikombe Cha Umoja is passed around and everyone drinks from it.
Then the oldest person present honors the ancestors by reciting the Tamshilai Tambiko, or libation statement, and pouring some of the drink or water to the four winds before asking for a blessing. He then pour some on the ground, which we pour into the potted plant. Then the group says, Ashe, Ashe, which is Yoruba for Amen.
Right. So each person is then given the opportunity to step forward and pour libation into the plant as they say the name of the deceased relative or family member in remembrance of that person. And then the host and hostess then take a sip from the unity cup, and then we hand it back to the elder. And then there's a drum ceremony called an Ngoma, and Haas and our children, as well as a few of our friends, are usually our drumming team for Kwanzaa.
Right.
And so that's how we celebrate it, guys.
That's how we celebrate
it.
And Kwanzaa, it has the power to transform individuals and communities by promoting unity, self-determination, and collective responsibility. It's a celebration that's not just limited to 1 week, but can be lived out every day of our lives.
And let me repeat that. It is something that can be lived out every day of our lives, because Kwanzaa is a celebration of African heritage and culture and the endurance of the people who have suffered tremendously. Yet, we still continue to strive.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder of our rich cultural heritage and inspires us to strive for excellence. We
hope you've learned something new today and that you'll join us in celebrating Kwanzaa this year. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you have any thoughts on Kwanzaa, please share them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more cultural insights and check out our other videos on African American history and culture. And lastly, adventure seekers, be good to yourselves, patient with others, keep your mind sharp, and be the change you want to see in the world.
And happy holidays, guys. Be safe and be happy.
Peace.